Some moments change everything. It was late, past midnight, the kind of hour where the house falls into a hush so thick you can hear your own thoughts brushing against the walls. I had just finished cleaning up the kitchen. The dishwasher hummed its tired lullaby, and I padded quietly down the hallway, barefoot, toward the linen closet to grab an extra blanket. Summer nights had started to cool, and I always worried that Harry, my stepson, would toss off his covers and wake up cold. I should have walked straight past his door. I should have just let the quiet be quiet. But something made me glance. His bedroom door was cracked open barely. Just enough. The soft spill of lamplight leaked through the gap, a golden slit on the hallway carpet. That alone wouldn't have meant anything. But then I heard it. A sound. Soft. Guttural. Like someone fighting breath, chasing it with a tremor that quaked underneath. And then I heard my name. Not Mom. Not the usual clipped hey. No, my actual name, whispered like a secret prayer. Isabel. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat. 1,000 possibilities flashed through my mind in an instant. Was he dreaming? Was he hurt? Was he on the phone? Curiosity wrapped around me like a vine. I know I shouldn't have looked, but something in me tilted. I pushed the door gently, slowly. And what I saw inside stunned me. Harry was lying back on his bed, shirtless, his chest rising and falling in quick, unsteady waves. His eyes were shut, his mouth slightly parted. One hand rested over his heart, the other, I won't describe it, but I froze. Not out of shock, but out of recognition. Because when he whispered again, the syllables of my name like a breath from deep within his ribs, I knew it wasn't a mistake. He wasn't dreaming. He wasn't on a call. He wasn't confused. He meant me. I could have left. I should have. Instead, I stepped fully into his room, closed the door behind me with a soft click, and said the words that would change everything between us. Your father should know this. His eyes flew open. His hand jerked away, and a flush of terror, pure and unmistakable, rose up his neck. I didn't mean, he started, his voice cracking like dry timber. But I raised a hand. Stop. I didn't recognize myself in that moment. The calmness in my voice wasn't mine. The heat blooming in my chest didn't feel like shame or fury. It felt like gravity. Like I was being pulled into a moment I'd been tiptoeing around for years without realizing it. I stepped closer, my bare feet whispering against his carpet. He sat upright, pulling the sheet halfway over himself, as if that might shield him from the weight of what had just been exposed. We stared at each other, and in that silence I saw everything. The years of glances held too long, the way he hovered in the doorway when I cooked, the way he asked questions just to hear my voice. The tension had always been there, a quiet thrum beneath the normal rhythms of a blended family. He wasn't my son by blood. I didn't raise him. I married his father when he was already in high school, a quiet boy with eyes that seemed too old for his age, always watching, always waiting. At first, I thought the way he watched me was discomfort, that he missed his real mother, that he resented me for being here. But now I wasn't so sure. I sat on the edge of the bed. You whispered my name. He flinched like I had struck him. I'm sorry, it wasn't supposed to happen. Do you know how long I've noticed? I asked, my voice still low, still steady. His throat worked around a lump of fear, or guilt, or both. You noticed? I nodded. I noticed when you'd stop breathing if I brushed past you in the kitchen. I noticed when you started helping with the dishes, just so we'd be alone. I noticed the way your gaze changed, how it stopped being casual and started becoming something else. He swallowed, silent. And I noticed something else, I added. Something worse. What? He whispered. That part of me didn't hate it. A storm passed between us. Not a word was spoken, but the room felt loud, charged. The kind of silence that's thick with everything unspoken. I don't know what's wrong with me, he said, his voice suddenly broken. I've tried not to feel this way. I've told myself it's wrong. You're married to my father. Do you think I don't tell myself the same thing? I snapped. He looked up, startled. You think this is easy for me? You think I haven't questioned every time you came home from college with that look in your eye? I stood now, pacing. Do you think I haven't hated myself for catching my breath when you smiled at me like that? He blinked, eyes wide with disbelief. This can't happen, I said finally, hands trembling. It can't. I know, he whispered, but it already has. And he was right. Not in the physical sense, not yet. But something between us had already crossed an invisible threshold. There was no undoing what I had seen. No erasing the truth that had cracked wide open between us in that bedroom. We stood at the edge of something dangerous. Something neither of us fully understood. But it was real. It was alive. And it was waiting. Waiting for one of us to take the next step. The next morning was deceptively quiet. Sunlight filtered through the kitchen windows, casting golden beams across the floor as I stood at the stove, flipping pancakes the way I always did on Sundays. Bacon sizzled in the pan. The scent of cinnamon and maple syrup filled the room. It was domestic, serene, normal. And yet, every second felt like a lie wrapped in ritual. I heard his footsteps behind me before I saw him. Harry. He walked in slowly, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to. He didn't say good morning. He didn't sit at the table like usual. He just stood there, at the threshold of the kitchen, his presence as loud as a scream. I didn't turn. You hungry? I asked, my voice as casual as I could make it. He didn't answer right away. Then, softly, do you regret it? My fingers tightened around the spatula. I turned off the stove. We didn't do anything, I said. You walked in, he whispered. You saw. You stayed. I turned then. He was still in the clothes he wore last night, an old t-shirt, sweatpants, both slightly rumpled. His hair was a mess, but his eyes were clear, locked on mine like they were trying to read some invisible code etched across my face. I didn't stop you, I said quietly. I didn't tell you to stop. He stepped closer, careful, like he was approaching something sacred or dangerous. I didn't want you to stop, he said. The words hung between us like smoke. Delicate. Inescapable. I moved toward the table, placing the plate of pancakes down more forcefully than I meant to. Your father will be back Tuesday, I muttered, not looking at him. Until then, we need to act normal. Harry didn't move. Define normal, he said. And I, foolishly, naively thought we could. We tried. For the next 2 days, we moved around each other like shadows, pretending we were just a mother and a son in a quiet house. We made dinner, watched TV, folded laundry. Every moment was stretched thin with tension. Every glance burned. But the pretending couldn't hold. It broke on Monday night. The rain had started just after sunset, a steady patter that wrapped around the house like a lullaby. I was curled up on the couch with a book, wearing one of Daniel's old sweaters, sleeves too long, collar loose around my neck. I wasn't reading. I hadn't turned the page in 20 minutes. Then I felt him behind me again. That same stillness. That same impossible pull. I looked up. Couldn't sleep? I asked. He shook his head, stepping closer, his voice a whisper. I keep thinking about it. Harry, I know. I know what I'm supposed to say. I know this is wrong. But I can't stop. He dropped to the floor beside me, sitting cross-legged at my feet like he used to do when he was younger, before the world got complicated. He rested his head lightly against my knee. And God help me, I let him. My fingers found his hair without thinking, brushing through it softly. A gesture born out of instinct, memory, and something else. You're not a boy anymore, I murmured. No, he whispered, eyes closing. You know what this means. I do. And still, you'd cross that line? He looked up at me then, and there was no hesitation in his eyes. I already have. That was the moment. The shift. I should have pulled away. Should have stood up, walked to my room, shut the door behind me. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned forward, resting my forehead gently against his. And in that breath, that quiet communion of skin and silence, the border dissolved. He rose slowly, deliberately, guiding me to stand with him. The rain beat harder against the windows, like a warning or a blessing. I couldn't tell which. We didn't speak as he took my hand and led me through the hallway. The house was dark, hushed, every corner steeped in memory and risk. In his room, the air was thick. The same lamplight as the other night glowed softly, as if waiting for us. This time he didn't close the door. I did. And when I turned back around, he looked at me, not with hesitation, not with guilt, but with something raw and terrifying and real. "I don't want to be your secret," he said. My breath caught. "You already are." And then, without fanfare, without words, we stepped into the unknown together. The morning Daniel returned, the house smelled of guilt. I scrubbed the kitchen counter 3 times, my hands moving so fast I didn't realize I'd worn a hole through the sponge. Harry was upstairs, silent. We hadn't spoken about what happened. Not in words. But it was there, in the way his eyes lingered at breakfast, in the brush of his fingers when he passed me the salt, in the quiet that stretched too long between us. And now Daniel was back. My husband. His father. The door opened with the sound of car tires on wet gravel, then the familiar jangle of his keys. I turned, heart thudding with the practiced rhythm of someone caught in a memory they don't want to recall. He stepped into the kitchen and smiled, brushing rain from his jacket. "Miss me?" he asked, his voice warm and unaware. I forced a smile. "Of course." He came forward, kissed my cheek, his lips dry and chapped. I leaned into the gesture out of habit, not feeling any of the warmth I used to. I wanted to feel it. I begged myself to feel it. But all I could think about was Harry. He came down the stairs a few minutes later, casual, composed, but his eyes found mine for just a moment. That look, that dangerous flicker of knowing. And I felt it again, the heat rising behind my ribs, the ache of something that shouldn't exist. "I got that new movie you wanted to see," Daniel said, flipping through his bag. "We can watch it tonight. The 3 of us." Harry didn't answer right away. Then, sure. That'd be nice. That evening was excruciating. We sat on the couch, Daniel in the middle, me on one side, Harry on the other. The film played, but no one really watched. I could feel Harry's presence like static in the air. Every time I glanced toward him, he was already looking at me. At one point, Daniel shifted, his arm resting across the back of the couch. It brushed against my shoulders and made me flinch, not from disgust but from shame. Because the only touch I could still feel was Harry's. I went to bed early, claiming a headache. The moment the door shut behind me, I pressed my hands to my face, breathing through the weight of everything pressing down. I told myself I could control it. I told myself it was a moment, a mistake, and now life had resumed. I could move forward. I had to, but I couldn't sleep, because I knew, with a terrible kind of certainty, that Harry would come. And he did. Just past midnight, a soft knock, barely audible, but I heard it like thunder. My pulse quickened. I didn't move, didn't answer, but I didn't say no either. The door creaked open. He stepped inside, barefoot and quiet. I was lying on my side, facing the window, pretending to sleep. He didn't say anything, just stood there, waiting. I turned slowly. "You can't," I whispered. "I already have," he said again. And just like that, the air collapsed between us. He crossed the room and sat on the edge of the bed, his presence setting every nerve on fire. I could smell his skin, fresh from the shower, clean, too clean, like he was trying to erase the guilt. but it clung to both of us like second skin. "I try to stay away," he said. "But I can't. Not when you look at me like you want it to." I closed my eyes, shaking my head. "I'm your father's wife. And I'm not your son," he whispered. "You keep forgetting that." I sat up, heart pounding. "Harry, this can't be a game. This isn't some fantasy you play out to get attention." "I don't want attention," he said. "I want you." The words broke something in me. And then I was kissing him. It was reckless, unthinkable. But in that moment, I stopped caring. I stopped pretending. I was tired of carrying guilt that only grew heavier in the dark. Tired of looking at myself in the mirror and lying. I should have pushed him away. Instead, I let him in. Again. Afterward, we lay there in silence. The air felt heavier, as if the house knew what we had done. I stared at the ceiling, the guilt already crawling in. But even then, even with Daniel asleep down the hall, even with my conscience screaming, I couldn't bring myself to say it was wrong. Because it didn't feel wrong. It felt inevitable. And I was terrified of how much I wanted it to happen again. The morning after felt like standing on the edge of something wide and deep and dangerous. I moved through the house like a ghost, quiet, deliberate, my hands trembling even as I folded laundry, poured coffee, refilled the fruit bowl. Everything was too normal, too still, like the calm before a storm you can hear coming from a mile away but can't outrun. Harry stayed in his room longer than usual. I didn't blame him. The air between us was thick with what we couldn't say, not in daylight, not when Daniel sat at the kitchen table scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world had changed. He glanced up. "You okay, Belle? You look pale." I forced a smile. "Didn't sleep well." He nodded, accepting it. That was Daniel, never one to probe, never the suspicious type. I had built a marriage on that steadiness, and now I was using it against him. That night, I avoided eye contact with Harry entirely. But it wasn't just the guilt. It was fear. Because I could feel something unraveling between us. And it wasn't just passion anymore, it was need. Hungry, raw, and unmanageable. It had grown teeth. We tried to pull away. I said all the right things. This has to stop. We were caught in something. We crossed a line. But every time he came close, close enough for me to smell his skin, hear his breath, feel the heat of his gaze, I unraveled. On Wednesday evening, everything cracked. It was raining again, soft and constant. Like it always did in this town once summer started to fade. I had gone into the garage to get the mop, thinking something mundane might anchor me. When I turned, Harry was there just behind the door. "You said we'd stop," he said, his voice low, ragged. I nodded. "We should." "But you're lying." I opened my mouth, ready to argue. But then he stepped forward, and I did nothing. "We're just pretending now," he whispered, "and you hate pretending." I backed against the wall, his body only inches from mine. The mop fell from my hand. "You want me," he said. "I want to be good," I whispered back. He touched my face gently, his thumb brushing beneath my lip. "You already aren't." That night, he didn't come to my room. I came to his. And that was the moment it changed from an accident to a pattern. We started creating space where none existed, 5 stolen minutes when Daniel ran errands. 10 when he was out for his walk. A late-night touch disguised as comfort. Whispers behind closed doors. Silence that spoke louder than any confession. It was madness. Beautiful, terrifying madness. I started forgetting things, leaving the stove on, missing appointments, burning dinner. Daniel noticed. He'd frown gently, ask if I was overwhelmed. I wanted to scream yes. I wanted to confess. But I couldn't. I couldn't stop. One evening, while I was folding laundry in the bedroom, I heard laughter from the living room. Daniel and Harry were watching a game together. Beer bottles on the table, chips scattered. It should have looked like family. Instead, it felt like betrayal. Because I looked at Daniel and wondered how he couldn't see it. How blind love must be that he couldn't see the way I looked at his son. How trust could be so full of holes that even this didn't sink it. Later, I tried to sleep. I tried to be a wife again. I let Daniel hold me. Let him kiss me goodnight. But every cell in my body was numb, every part of me recoiling inward like a frightened animal. And when I couldn't bear it anymore, I slipped out of bed. Barefoot, I walked down the hall, not caring if the floors creaked, not caring if the house heard. Harry opened the door before I even knocked.
We didn't speak.
We didn't need to. The storm had already started. And now we were in its center. Together. I told myself it had to end. Not tomorrow. Not someday.
Now.
Because every time I looked at Daniel, every time he smiled at me from across the dinner table, I felt like my bones were splintering. The weight of what I was doing, what we were doing, pressed so hard against my chest, I thought I might forget how to breathe. And still I wanted it. That was the worst part. I wanted Harry. I wanted his hands, his voice, the way his eyes locked on mine like we were the only two people in the world that mattered. I wanted the moments in shadow. The ones stolen between responsibilities, between expectations, between everything I used to believe made me a good woman. But I couldn't keep lying to my husband. I couldn't keep looking at the boy I helped raise and seeing someone who felt more like temptation than family. So I ended it. I waited until a Sunday afternoon, when Daniel was at the hardware store and the house was hushed with quiet, and I went to Harry's room. He was at his desk, half pretending to study, though I knew he hadn't read a page. He didn't look surprised when I walked in. Just closed the laptop slowly and waited. I didn't sit down. "This has to stop," I said. The words nearly stuck in my throat, like they didn't belong there. Harry didn't answer right away. Just watched me with that unreadable stillness, like he was weighing how real I was being. "I'm serious," I added, voice trembling. "We've crossed a line we can't keep crossing. It's wrong. I know it. You know it." His jaw clenched. "Do you regret it?" I blinked. "I regret us letting it go on." "Not the first time," he said, standing slowly. "Not the second. Not the way you kissed me like you were starving. That's not fair." "No." He moved toward me. "Then tell me this. Why are your hands shaking right now?" I looked down and he was right. My fingers trembled like leaves in wind. "You're addicted to pretending you're stronger than this," he whispered. "I have to be stronger than this," I snapped. "I am your stepmother, Harry. You are Daniel's son." "You're not my mother," he said. "And I am not a boy who didn't know what he wanted." I turned away. "It doesn't matter." "It does to me." He stepped closer, but I held up a hand. "No," I said, firmly this time. "I need you to respect this. No more late nights. No more touches in passing. No more looking at me like that." He didn't argue. He just nodded once. "Okay." And I hated him for making it sound that easy. The next few days were agonizing. Not because he resisted, but because he didn't. Harry did exactly as I asked. He kept his distance. No more lingering in doorways. No more quiet footsteps outside my room at midnight. No more heat in his gaze. It was like he'd turned off whatever it was between us, shut it down like a switch. And that's when I realized something I wasn't ready to face. I missed him.
Desperately.
I missed the fire.
The ache.
The dangerous thrill that came from being wanted in a way Daniel had long forgotten how to offer. I missed the way Harry looked at me like I was still beautiful. Like I mattered in ways that had nothing to do with folded laundry or reheated dinners or years of safe routine. And every night, when I lay in bed beside a man who still trusted me, I stared at the ceiling and begged myself not to get up. I didn't, but I wanted to. So badly that my hands would clench the sheets just to anchor me in place. The final crack came one morning when I walked into the kitchen and saw Harry helping Daniel replace a light fixture. They were laughing, just a normal father and son moment, and I nearly dropped my coffee mug. Because I realized then that no matter how much I tried to bury it, the truth had carved itself into me. I wasn't in control. Not anymore. I had buried the hunger, but it still throbbed beneath the surface, waiting. And I didn't know how much longer I could keep it there.